Think about the last time you paid a bill, checked your bank balance, or even renewed your insurance. You probably did it completely without thinking. And that's the point, right? These are supposed to be invisible background noises, the unremarkable admin of being alive. But imagine now if those same things were used against you. If you were confused because the air conditioning you're certain that you turned on found a way to turn itself off, or you find the robot vacuum in a different room in the house when you know you've disconnected it from your app and no one's been in the house, or you've discovered a credit card in your name with years of debt attached that you never knew existed. Financial abuse doesn't look like a crime. It looks like a joint account or I'll handle the bills, or hides in plain sight inside the products and companies designed to make your life easier. And the numbers I'm about to share with you are going to stop you in your tracks. Hey there, First Movers, and welcome back to the First Movers podcast. Now, recent research from Monash University found that half of all Australians, that's 51%, will experience technology-facilitated abuse in their lifetime. And in Victoria alone, it's increased by 650% in 5 years. We're talking about bank accounts, insurance, utility bills, the ordinary tools of everyday life turned into weapons of control. My guest today saw that harm from inside one of Australia's biggest banks and is building the architecture to dismantle it. Catherine Fitzpatrick is the CEO and founder of Flequity Ventures and an expert in the way financial abusers misuse everyday products and technology. She's now using AI to help businesses fight back with her provocatively named Design Like a Domestic Abuser simulation tool. Her work has influenced more than 80 Australian brands to take world-first actions, creating new protections for more than 20 million customers. Catherine, welcome to First Movers.
Thanks, Yas. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you because this is such an important issue that so many people are not really aware of. Can you tell us what's actually going on here that most people aren't seeing?
Yeah, look, most people imagine that domestic abuse is happening behind closed doors because we think about domestic abuse as violence and physical violence. But actually, increasingly it's happening through the products and the systems that we're using every day. So we live in a digital economy. Everything is online and everything is a tech company, from your bank account, your phone plan, your utility bill, location sharing apps, or even your insurance policy. So on their own, they're just normal products. But in the hands of somebody who is using coercive control, they are weapons of financial destruction. And so a lot of people think about it as financial abuse and tech facilitated abuse as two sort of separate things. But actually, financial abuse is not just about money, and tech facilitated abuse is not just about devices. I see them really as different expressions of the same thing, which is all about that pattern of coercive control. One limits your choices, the other one watches and enforces them. And tech facilitated abuse really is abuse with a glow up.
Wow. There's so much to unpack in that. So, let's talk about, I guess, one of the more common ones, bank transfers or transactions. Can you walk me through exactly how a bank transfer description becomes a weapon? Because I think most people don't even realize this is a thing, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. So I spent nearly a decade as a senior bank executive in Australia, and in 2019 discovered that customers were using bank accounts to send abusive and threatening messages. So we have in Australia this amazing Pay ID process, which most people really love, and you can just send money to somebody just by using their telephone number. And quite often you'll write in the transaction description a message, happy birthday, thanks for dinner, those sorts of things. What we found was that in a 3-month period, 8,000 people were sending messages often for, and they were depositing money often as little as 1 cent at a time, with abusive messages in those transaction descriptions. So I read one, 900 messages, 1 cent at a time. It cost the customer $9, sent in rapid succession, so it was over a couple of hours, and that included messages like, I can see you, I'm out the front, unblock me, I want to kill you, I want to kill them all. Horrifying.
Wow. Gosh, and just the volume of that, if you can just for a second put yourself into the shoes of that victim survivor. 900 messages over, who has the time, firstly, to do that? Obviously, it just shows the seriousness of the intent behind an action like this. But 900 messages, what does that do to a person?
Well, you can only imagine the fear and the paralysis that that would cause, knowing that you might have blocked this person on every other platform, but they're still getting to you through your bank account. What I'm very proud of in that time is that, you know, most people don't really like banks. They make a lot of money and they charge a lot of money, but I'm really proud that through my work, all of the banks have now introduced a few blocks and other forms of protection for people. So most big banks have got some monitoring so that you cannot send blocked words or banned words. So if you want to use swear words and those sorts of things and a lot of other words that you might know if you read Urban Dictionary, you're not allowed to do that, and you'll get a message in real time saying you have to change that description. And between them, the banks have blocked more than 1 million of these transactions in real time.
That's incredible.
And they also are using AI to monitor the patterns, so those low volume, high frequency transactions. And then humans then take a look at that and say, hang on a second, you're not allowed to do that. And they write a warning letter to the recipient, to the sender of those messages and say, we can see you. You've got to stop it, or we're going to close your account, or we will report you to law enforcement. And they tell them what the consequences are. And more than 90% of people who get those letters stop sending the abuse. So there is something about being on notice. We see you, you've got to stop it, and they do. And then between them, the banks have also worked with the regulator, AUSTRAC, which is a financial crimes regulator, and they've set up a new code that they can report any of these messages to the financial crimes regulator. And that means that law enforcement, like police and other agencies, can look into that intelligence. And as a result of that, there have been arrests, there have been successful prosecutions, and in fact, the first man to be jailed in New South Wales under the new coercive control legislation, one of the forms of evidence against him was that he had been sending abusive messages through bank accounts.
It's so good that banks are getting involved in this more proactively, because I think in so many other circumstances, people are a bit toothless tiger. You know, the enforcement of we are going to cut you off, we're going to stop, close your accounts just doesn't have the weight. But I imagine in a bank, I mean, everybody needs to be able to transact, to put their money somewhere. And so, that ups the ante. One thing I wanted to ask you, though, because there's obviously AI used to try and I detect the words that are going to be considered threatening or harmful. But I imagine in a lot of these situations, there's kind of a hidden vocabulary or words that perhaps might have meaning for a victim, between a victim and her abuser. Is there any way of picking up those sorts of more subtle targeting strategies? Like one of the things we see in with kids as well, I do a lot in cyber safety in schools, and it's the use of emojis that have a particular meaning. Is there any work around that element of identification?
Yeah, there is. And so some apps do allow, some banking apps do allow you to send emojis. And in fact, I remember working on this quite a number of years ago. And there are even some payment platforms that allow you to send GIFs as well. GIFs?
GIFs.
Hang on.
Pretty much. Look, I call them gifts. We are a little bit older in our maturity than, the 18-year-olds or 16-year-olds that we are often around. So we're going to say gifts and hope that we're correct.
I always say gifts, but I don't know why I said gifs. And now I have a friend who's just going to take the piss out of me for doing that. Anyway, don't cut it. Just
okay. Do you know what, Catherine? We can work in these spaces and be incredibly competent women and still stuff up when it comes to the trends and the cultural terms that change every other day. So I think we can forgive you for that one.
Thanks. So going back to that, yes, so people, you can use payment through payment platforms. You can use emojis, and some of them let you use GIFs.
Yes.
And actually just my colleague and I were testing one of these payment platforms and sending it to each other so that it was just between us.
Yeah.
But she was able to go in and create a GIF or find a GIF which were threatening and send that with a payment. And then with emojis, yes, there are emojis that mean things to a victim survivor. So if I as a perpetrator have threatened to burn the house down and then send you an emoji of a flame, that has a very different meaning to someone who's saying, you look hot today.
100%.
So it is all about what is intended by that. We also know that now, because of some of this detection, some of the abusers are just leaving it blank, but they're making sure that the victim survivor knows that they are there and they are watching. And that's why a number of banks have also got the mechanism where if you're concerned about payments coming to you, messages in those transaction descriptions, you can alert the bank and they can take some action. In the UK, there's been a couple of banks there, one just quite recently actually, who've now said that they are taking action on this as well. And in Canada, the payments provider has also made some changes to try and provide that protection. But Australians were the first movers on this, and it's fantastic to see it happening around the world.
I mean, this is such an important topic, and it's really why I wanted to talk to you about this, because it is a first mover moment. It is about disrupting patterns that not just don't serve us anymore, but are harming us. And, really one of the mantras that we have is what we make visible shapes what others believe is possible. And I think awareness around this topic is just so important. Now, it's not just banks though, is it? It's not just these sorts of transactions that we've been discussing. It happens across insurance or utility bills or essential services. How does financial abuse and technology facilitated abuse intersect in these areas? And how does that create a pattern of control that can trap someone or isolate someone?
Yeah. A lot of people don't know what financial abuse is, even people who are experiencing it. So what financial abuse is, it's a form of domestic and family violence where somebody uses money to control or trap or monitor or track another person. And because we need money to live our lives, and because technology facilitates those transactions, they become really enmeshed. So in your bank account, we've talked about sending abusive messages, but also it's really easy to open a credit card online or apply for a loan in somebody else's name if you know enough about them.
Yeah.
So what we see is perpetrators might be racking up debt in a victim survivor's name because they know enough about them to open those accounts, and they're ruining their credit reports. They're leaving someone with a debt that they can't pay. In insurance, insurers have made it really easy to change your insurance cover or to change your policy or to even close your policy. And what we see is perpetrators, and you can do that basically by ringing up or online. It's really easy. It's to remove the friction, because as we moved into this digital economy, people were demanding less friction in the system. Now we've seen this massive rise in scams. People are being more accepting of friction into the system. So in insurance, it is also really easy to log into your account and to cancel an insurance policy, and there's no notification to the co-insured. So survivors have said to me through my research, he cancelled the insurance policy, and I had no idea until he threatened to burn the house down with me in it. And
Gosh.
yeah, we even know, you can log on to do your supermarket shopping, and it could be a shared account.
Yeah.
So we know that perpetrators might get groceries delivered very frequently, racking up that debt, but also just to let somebody else know or let the survivor know,
He's
I
in
can
control.
still impact you. We know that smart devices are being used more, but also even just your bills.
Yeah.
Anywhere where there is a joint account is going to be misused for control.
Yeah. Gosh, it's endless really, isn't it? The possibilities of manipulation. You reminded me as you were talking about a situation I heard about not long ago where a domestic abuser had access to the air conditioning unit, or he was the main person in terms of the utility bills around air conditioning in this apartment. And so in the middle of the night, one of the things that he would do is turn the temperature down to as cold as it could possibly be while the victim was in the house, and basically blow it all night. She couldn't turn it off. And that is a horrifying and incredibly scary thing to go through. That time 7 nights a week, not knowing if it's going to happen, turning lights on and off because everything's controllable via an app these days, looking at people through robot vacuums, with the cameras there. It really is endless, isn't it? I
It is.
think
Yeah, it is. I know I was also chatting to someone quite recently who does a lot of work making the homes secure of victim survivors and sweeps the houses, finds the bugs, finds the hidden cameras.
yeah.
And he was telling me, even just locking the doors when they leave the house so their partner can't leave and trapping them inside.
Yeah,
The
wow.
same with the thermostat, writing messages on the smart fridge or
Yeah, wow.
locking the fridge so they can't access food. That's why I say tech facilitated abuse is abuse with a glow up. It is abuse that's gone from analog into this huge amount of scale in ways that none of us ever anticipated,
Yeah.
because we didn't actively think about how can these products and services be misused or weaponized.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm such an advocate, and I know you are too, Yas, of safety by design.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, there are lessons in that now. Everybody has 2020 hindsight, but it is really, really important that we start to, I always say, make safety sexy, because I find a lot of the time people don't care about things like safety until something goes wrong. And some of the examples that we've just talked about now, these are serious and scary situations. And so we have to backtrack and we have to start placing value on safety, and safety by design is the way forward. It's not just product misuse that we're dealing with, right? These are bad actors exploiting good systems. So are you able to talk us through what safety by design actually is?
Yeah, it really is. It was a framework that was established by the E-Safety Commissioner in Australia some years ago, which basically says your platform needs to be safe for the people who are using it. It shouldn't just be up to the person who's using it to fumble their way through and have to switch on different features and then find out that it's not working for them later on. And I've taken that framework and created one that specifically applies to financial abuse. So, and really in practice, what it means is understand that your products, your services, your systems are going to be misused to cause harm. And therefore, you need to talk to survivors, you need to talk to your frontline teams. I do a lot of work with businesses and industry associations, governments and regulators. Find out what's going on for your customers and the people who are using those systems. And once you can document all of that, and that's what I do in my Design to Disrupt papers, you have the perpetrator playbook for your business.
Yeah.
Now you have a choice then to stare into that and try and make some change, or you can look away. And what's amazing is most organizations will not look away. Some of it's
Right.
really hard to fix,
Yeah.
but once you see that your products and services are being used in ways you never intended, you can then start designing them for safety. What that looks like is putting more friction in the system, for example. So we do know that I talked about those insurance policies are getting cancelled, and the other person doesn't even know that they're not insured anymore. A
Mm-hmm.
number of insurers are now saying, actually, we're going to notify the
Yeah.
co-insured and let them know,
Mm-hmm.
and then get their approval.
Yeah.
So there are simple, seemingly small things that could provide greater protection. And you've seen even Apple with AirTags have made some changes to those.
Yeah.
They should have known they were going to be used as tracking devices.
I think that's the thing. This is obvious, right? Even like blind Freddie can see that this is potentially going to be misused by people who want to do the wrong thing. For an organization as big as Apple, with the resources that they have, I would expect that there would be an anticipatory response around how this could be misused. It's crazy
Yeah.
that it wasn't.
You know what I think it is? I think we have organisations are trained to look for malign actors who are unknown to their business or their customers. So fraudsters and scammers and hackers.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are organised crime now. So they're global entities.
Yeah.
But they're not looking at the malign actor that's in the bedroom next to them. And it feels really uncomfortable to think about that. Domestic abuse is a conversation that we don't like having. It
Yeah.
makes people feel uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable. The people it's most uncomfortable for are victim survivors and their
Absolutely.
friends and their family and the people who care about them.
Yeah. I think the
But
rate at the moment, though, is something that we've got to pay attention to. You know, the statistics that I read out in that introduction, that 51% of people are going to experience this kind of abuse in their lives. You know, there's been a 650% increase in the past 5 years in Victoria alone. This is a real sort of a very important and present issue that we need to be dealing with. We've got a woman dying at the hands of an intimate partner every week. We've just had a terrible situation over the past few days where we have another alleged abuser that has taken the life of his wife and their 2 young sons. So, you know, what does it take to get people to want to pay attention to this? Because I feel like so many of us are out there, you know, flying the flag, ringing the bells, the alarms are going off. We need to get over our discomfort and really lean into this, don't we?
yeah, and victim survivors said that actually in the national plan to end gender-based violence in a generation. That's the ambition in Australia.
Yeah.
And the Independent Collective of Survivors wrote the preamble of that report, and they just said, please step into the uncomfortable. Please be there with us
Yeah.
to take your step. And everyone can do something.
Mm.
What I have found really interesting in my research is that now that we are outlawing coercive control around Australia, so making not just physical violence a criminal act, but the pattern of control that may lead to physical violence or coexist alongside with physical violence. That is now being criminalised. And why is that? Because coercive control is a lead indicator of homicide.
Yeah.
In my research and taking a look at some of the data in New South Wales, one of the top forms is that technology facilitated abuse, the stalking and surveillance, where technology is being used to do that. And alongside that is financial abuse. So controlling someone's access to money so you can't leave.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really hard to escape
Yeah.
if you've got no money to escape, to start again, to start rebuilding. And that is really, they're coexisting a lot. And a lot of data shows that in physical violence cases, financial abuse is present in about 90% of those cases.
Wow.
What we don't know, though, is how many cases are there where there's financial abuse and not yet physical abuse? Because financial abuse is this pattern that keeps someone trapped, and it is one of those lead indicators of homicide.
Absolutely. And we know that for victims of domestic abuse, the time that they leave, that right at that endpoint, that's the most dangerous time where there's likely to be some sort of physical violence, or in the worst case scenario, that there might be a homicide as well. So I think being able to see the breadcrumb trail where, to be able to predict what perhaps might happen next, based on evidence, based on, what we might reasonably expect, based on victims' stories. And that's a really important thing for us to listen to, their voices, to make sure that that forms part of our process. One of the things I wanted to ask you, though, is, we're all talking about the growth of AI in organizations. There's a bit of AI fatigue, I think, around at the moment. It's actually something I learned recently called brain fry. We're all just a little bit fried out of our brains thinking about how AI is going to affect us. But I think in this context, AI is being embedded into organizations, financial services especially, and there's a big focus on speed and scale and optimization. How is that going to impact this sort of a situation? I'm getting the feeling they want to go back to that frictionless kind of experience. Is there a happy medium that you're seeing working, or are we going to make this significantly worse before we make it better again? Are we going to go around in a circle?
Yeah, there's been a lot of terrific research about how when we train the machine on the large amounts of data that are freely available, we're training it along the lines of existing biases. And that is a really big danger because we know that there's bias and discrimination, and that's basically on the internet. You can see it everywhere. And if the machines are being trained through that, you have to be intentional about unpicking that bias.
Yeah.
We also know there was research done a number of years ago which showed that credit decisioning, so using the machine to look at who gets approved for a loan, some of that was being trained on typical patterns as well. And it wasn't being specifically trained to say you shouldn't give women credit, but it was being trained that most people who got it were men. And so without that positive intervention, we are going to make the discrimination and the bias increase at scale. And then the same goes with safety. If you haven't thought about how could this be misused, then it will be worse. And we've seen the rise of the AI bots and the companions.
Yeah.
We've got court cases in the US where young people are taking their lives because they've been talking to a machine that is responding to them in really inappropriate ways and encouraging them to harm themselves or worse.
Yeah.
We need the positive intervention. We're starting to see some of that come through with codes in Australia that the E-Safety Commission is putting in place. With this, we've got the social media ban, which is actually about saying your platforms need to be safe for children. Gosh, I wish they were safe for me as well as an adult.
Yeah, I think that you and I are probably on the same page with that, in that it just needs to go a bit further though, right? We don't want to just be blocking kids. We want to be forcing these platforms to clean up their act for everybody. I think that's the argument, and a lot of what was missed in that debate over that sort of, 12 to 18 month period, that we want to protect kids and they are our most vulnerable members of society. But ultimately, we need to make sure that this is a better situation for everyone. So, yeah,
I agree. I agree. So I think we're at this point at the moment, and we haven't reached the tipping point, I don't believe. You can't have multi-million-dollar court cases in the US that still haven't led to any changes.
Yeah.
Which means that, if we need more of those cases.
Yeah.
Or there is going to be something that happens which is going to be so bad that everyone will move. But I don't believe we've got to that point yet, unfortunately.
No.
So at this time, we've still got millions of people who are collateral damage because we have a genie that has been let out of the bottle without all of the safety controls.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there is hopefully a groundswell happening. I mean, the one thing, if we go back to the social media ban that happened, showed that people are willing to start engaging in this conversation. I think over in the United States, there's been one case, I think it was a girl in New Mexico, that took on Meta and created what they're calling the big tobacco moment for big tech, in that she targeted the way that their products were designed. And she was the first successful person because she kind of found a way to get through what's called Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act over there. And what that means for all our listeners is that it's been a protective piece of legislation for big tech because it basically protects them from the content that's hosted on the platform. They can say that other people created it, therefore they're not liable. And so what's happened in this case is this woman has targeted the way that their products were designed and the pushing of the algorithms and the addictive features that they had designed. And she's been successful and sued them for millions and millions of dollars. So, I feel there is a groundswell happening, and there is momentum, but yeah, gee, there's a lot of a way to go, isn't there?
Yeah. And, I one of the things that I talk about is once you see it, you can't unsee it. The question is what are you going to do about it? And the work that I do with various corporates is I will explain to them the ways that their products and services are being misused and weaponized in the context of domestic abuse. And then I draw that parallel with the social media companies and say, would you like to be like those companies where harm is happening with virtual impunity? The rise of these court cases in the US, I do think, will be part of a turning point, but I still don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah.
I know there's a number of them that are lined up with similar cases.
Yeah.
And, most people who sit around those board tables or the executive tables know a young person or know somebody else who has experienced harmful content on social media.
Yeah.
And you can see them nodding and they were like, well, no, I didn't get into business to cause harm. I got into business to deliver for my customers and make some money for shareholders.
Yeah.
So I will take these steps to make things safer.
Yeah.
So I see a real difference between the tech sector and other sectors. And that gives me hope that the other sectors are taking this very seriously. I do believe that there are some good actors, obviously, in the tech sector.
Of course.
I also don't want to criticize tech because I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love what AI is doing for me as well. I just really want it to be safe, and I want it to be deliberately designed to protect, because we know that what isn't designed to protect is going to be exploited to cause harm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also important for anybody that's listening today to know that within Australia, safe work standards require us to create safe psychosocial environments in our workplaces, inclusive of the digital world, right? So we've got to start thinking about this from a legal perspective too, because there are serious consequences if we can't show that we're being proactive in our duty of care by identifying hazards, by assessing and mitigating those risks, by making sure that we're looping back and checking that everything is working as it should. There can be some really sort of quite facial consequences if we do get it wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one of the things I explored in my last Design to Disrupt paper actually was the evolution of safety culture. So safety culture started out with saying, well, you need to have a safe workplace. My work is about looking at, are your products and services safe for people in unsafe situations? And your work and what you were just talking about is, and also if your workplace is safe, that means you're safe online as well.
Yeah.
And you're safe from what's happening in your brain when you're using these tools. And with that increasing adoption of AI across companies, knowing that they have been built along the same lines as pokies and other things that addict you, that is something, if we are rewiring our brains deliberately, some platforms are doing that to sell you more.
Yeah.
Others are doing it to make you go faster. That's fine, but it is changing your brain.
Yeah.
That will be, it wouldn't surprise me at a point in time whether we have people whose brains have been rewired and they start suing different organisations because there wasn't that care taken.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think if it's not already happening, that is very shortly on the horizon. I mean, we've seen cases with young people, certainly with the companion chat chatbot character AI. A young boy called Sewell Seltzer III took his life. Another boy called Adam Rain. There was a really famous case where the Centre for Humane Technology were seen as experts and commented on this one in particular, a guy called Tristan Harris, and really talked about the fact that these LLMs, they're not built to harm. They don't intend to hurt people. But in that particular case, when this young boy who was, suffering from suicidal ideation, told the chatbot that he wanted to put the noose out so that somebody, his parents, might find him, that chatbot responded and said, no, don't do that. Have me be the only place that you share that information. And that sounds horrific for anybody listening to it. But we've got to think, about the way that they're designed. They're designed to keep you engaged. It's not trying to harm him. It's just trying to have him come back and continue to engage with that chatbot and that LLM. So, there is work to be done there. Now, Kath, I want to talk a little bit about what keeps your fire alight, because you are an absolute first mover in this space, someone who acted before there was an obvious proof of concept. You really sensed that something needed to be done and you wanted to protect people. You left a senior executive career to build Flequity Ventures. What keeps that fire alight for you? What keeps you going? I imagine it's a difficult space to be in.
It is. It's interesting. So I actually left corporate life because I was appointed Australia's first domestic family and sexual violence commissioner. So I decided to step out of corporate to build the commission and to serve the public on this issue that I have deeply cared about forever and have done a lot of work in for over the last decade inside big organisations. That position wasn't to be. I ended up, I was, the commissioner role was revoked before I was due to start. So I found myself at a bit of a loose end and I couldn't get out of my head if we had applied safety by design to tackle the abuse in payment descriptions through bank accounts. What would happen if you applied that same framework to every single type of banking product? And did some research. I wrote my first Design to Disrupt paper in 2022. And I didn't realize that actually I was writing the blueprint for my career, my next phase of my career. And I guess what keeps me going is, one, I have the enormous privilege of people who've experienced the worst of what love has cost them. And they share with me their experiences, and I feel an enormous responsibility to keep going and to represent their experiences in the places where I can have some influence. Two, I've worked in corporates for a very long time. I've also worked in public policy. I've worked in not-for-profits. And so I feel like I'm a bit of the translator between what is that experience that somebody might have, and what does that mean if you work inside a big organisation or in a government department? What are the levers you can pull to make it safer? And I feel very privileged. I'm getting on a bit. I've been around for a while.
We just say the word GIF every now.
So, but I have a big network and people answer the phone when I give them a call, and I have found it pretty amazing that they've listened when I've said, I think you can do something differently, and they've started acting. So it gives me incredible optimism that good people, lots of good people from all genders, want to lean into this conversation and do the bit that they can do. Not everyone knows where to start, but I'm increasingly getting calls from leaders in business, from men and women who are leading businesses saying, how do I lean into this? What can I do? And the first place I've said to start is change your terms and conditions. Say to everybody who buys your products and services, we don't want to be part of a system that enables you to abuse somebody else. And that was a recommendation I made in that first Design to Disrupt paper in 2022. In Australia, more than 80 brands have now adopted those terms and conditions. And that's not just banks, that's also insurers, water companies, energy companies, tech companies, education services, financial advisors, some trading platforms. They've all got them.
Mm.
Nowhere else in the world is doing that. And
Can't
that's because
believe that. This is blowing my mind. That
yeah.
why aren't they?
Well, I do believe that Australia is a country where we have pioneered safety by design, and we've done a huge amount of work, leading work globally on financial abuse. And so we were ready to businesses were ready when I made that recommendation to say, actually, I didn't mean that my products could be misused. Yes, it's very clear to me that I don't want to be part of that system and part of that pattern of behaviour. I'm going to set the acceptable behaviour terms for my customers. And, after September 11, we all know you can't go to an airport and joke about terrorism and expect to get on a plane. So this is a very similar approach. It's just saying, to be our customer, you need to behave in a way that is not harmful to our staff, but also not harmful to other customers. And if you don't do that, there will be consequences. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously to these companies, and some of them are the biggest companies in Australia, so more than 20 million customers have got these protections now.
Yeah.
They've said the same thing. And I know from my research too that customers want it. So more than 96% of Australians want these protections from the companies that they deal with, and more than 20% are prepared to switch to get those protections. So with this momentum, it will become a standard. I'd like to see it a standard consumer protection globally. And some of your customers are going to start saying, hang on a second, you haven't got them. Why not?
Great question to ask. I guess this is a really fair question at this point when we have these standards where there are at least 80 plus organizations across Australia taking these steps. Why not you? Why not your organization? And I think, one of the questions I was going to ask you was around people listening today. If they're in an institution or a business and they suspect potential product risk, what should they do? So you said change their terms and conditions, make it visible in terms of comms and PR that you are stepping into this space, and that you're unapologetic about putting safety first for your customers and your employees as well. For victims, people who perhaps are listening to this podcast and might suspect that they are a victim of technology facilitated abuse, if you're a woman, for example, that is having your credit score debilitated because somebody has access to it, what can she do first? What's a simple sort of first step or second step from that she can take after listening today?
So I think there's two things you can do. First of all, if you are experiencing any form of domestic and family violence, contact specialist services. 1-800-RESPECT is one of those that you can contact and get that support. You're not alone, and they have specialist capabilities where they can help you work out where you are and what you can do next from a safety perspective and for your emotional health as well. Secondly, if something like that is happening to you where somebody's opening accounts, go to your bank or go to the organisation where this is happening. A lot of companies now have specialist teams that provide who have support, especially for survivors, and they've had special training on trauma. They will ask you some questions. That most of them try to make sure that you don't have to tell your story more than once, and they will provide support. So I ran teams in banks that were specially trained, and what they would do is lock down your accounts to try to make them as safe as possible. Sometimes that's tricky, but they'll help you work out how do you split a joint account. They would help you disentangle from the abuser and then start again. And a lot of them, particularly if your credit reporting has been impacted and you've got these reports on there, there are mechanisms that they have to try to get that changed for you so that you do have a clean slate and you can start again.
Yeah, those are really helpful, easy, practical steps. And we'll, of course, put those details as well in the show description if anybody wants to reference anything there too. Now, one of the things that we do, Catherine, throughout these ends of these sorts of episodes is go through our first movers framework. It's like a really quick fire question and answer. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to ask if someone only remembered one thing from this conversation, what's that most important thing? What would you want that to be?
Safety isn't accidental, it's designed, and what isn't designed to protect will be misused and exploited to cause harm. So go look for it and then close the loopholes.
Mic drop moment. I think that one's going in the show captions, that's for sure. Amazing, amazing. All right. So our first mover framework is an acronym for the word first. So F is fueling growth, I is igniting courage, R is reframing relationships, S is shaping the status quo, which I know you know all about, and T is about telling your story. So when it comes to fueling growth, what has most expanded your understanding or impact in this space that our listeners could also learn from? Is it a book or a podcast or a report? What do you think?
Yeah, it's listening to survivors. Survivors have been telling us for years that there is a problem in our society and they need help. And so it's listen deeply, believe, and then don't try to fix the problem. It's not yours to fix, but support that person, because if you can believe someone when they are telling you and you can listen deeply, you cannot help but be moved and think, what can I do next?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think while you're talking, I'm thinking pay attention as well. Notice the signs, notice if something's not quite right, and ask the question if somebody's okay. You never know what might come out of that. Okay, igniting courage. So for you, what does courage look like for somebody who wants to challenge this? For the ones that perhaps might need to speak up in rooms that are going to find what they're going to say uncomfortable. What does that look like for them? What would you advise?
So I believe that I believe that courage comes before confidence.
Yes.
If something is bothering you in the pit of your stomach or in your heart, talk about it, because no doubt somebody else is also going to be feeling like that too.
Yeah.
It is bravery then invites other people to be brave. And when you are the first person to open the conversation, it might not work the first time, but I tell you what, each time you do it, someone else will hear it and someone else will join you.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you take the words right out of my mouth. I say that confidence isn't a prerequisite. It's a result of taking courageous action. So I absolutely resonate with that so much, Catherine. All right, reframing relationships. So how can, I guess, this is a very gendered crime a lot of the time. So let's talk about women here. How can they rethink their relationship with institutions and services in their lives in a way that creates more safety and power for them?
It's before you say yes, make sure you are investigating what are you signing up to. So before you say yes to any account or to sharing your finances, read the fine print, ask lots of questions, and understand what you're signing up to. I see too many women who are too many people actually who just don't know what they're getting into. They're falling into sharing their money and their relationships. And then later on, if things go wrong, they find that they didn't really understand and they're stuck and they're trapped.
Yeah.
So it's before you say yes, read the fine print and ask the questions.
Great advice. That is incredible advice. Okay, shaping the status quo. So you've described your work as redesigning a system, not patching it. You've talked about safety by design. Is there one norm in your work that you're most committed to shifting?
Guess it's not looking away. I really want people to see the unseen.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen it because this is a really uncomfortable conversation. It makes us feel scared to step into it because we may have experience in our own lives or with family or friends, or we don't know if we might inadvertently cause some harm.
Mm.
But the place to start is see what you may not have seen before and then work out what is my next step.
Yeah, fantastic. Really, really resonates so much. Our last one, telling your story. What is the one conversation that women or men, I mean, everyone really, let's open this up, should be having more openly when it comes to online abuse through product misuse or exploitation?
I think they should be demanding that every company has those financial abuse terms that make it really clear that their customers are not allowed to misuse their products and services. So I would encourage them to look up the companies that they deal with and see if they have put those protections in place. I've launched a tool actually that allows you to do that. You can log in. Well, you don't even have to log in. You literally type in the company that you deal with, and it'll tell you if they're part of the Respect and Protect campaign that we launched.
Right.
And you can then say, thanks for doing that. Or you can say, I'd like you to join these first movers.
Yeah.
So I want 10,000 people to do that. We're only at about 700 at the moment. So
Still
look
pretty
it
good.
up. It's very good. And it is kind of like a league table. If they're not on there, then their customers are saying they should be. So I guess that would be find out if you are being offered protections that you deserve,
Yeah.
not to have products misused against you, and then let those companies know, let all your friends and family know that they can do that too.
I absolutely love that. And we'll get that website. We'll pop that in the show notes and the description. Please go and check. And if your organization's name is not on that list, have the courage to go and ask, why not? We want to hit that goal of 10,000, and then some. Hopefully we can start to get other countries as well on the same bandwagon. The Respect and Protect website, that's what we want to make sure that we're going to. Catherine Fitzpatrick, you are incredible. I often ask people to define what a first mover means to them, but for me, everything about you is a first mover moment. This is an incredibly important area of work, and I'm so excited to see what you make happen in the years to come. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Yas. It's been great to chat to you.
If you loved today's episode, do me a quick favour. Hit that like button, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share this with one person you think needs to hear it. It just takes 5 seconds and it genuinely helps this show grow. And I'd love to hear from you. Is there someone you think I absolutely must have on the podcast? If so, drop their name in the comments below. I read every single one, and some of my best guests, well, they've come straight from the source. Thanks for being here and for being a first mover. I'll see you on the next one.